Admiral Zex Thor of the Galactic Empire stared at the massive display screen in disbelief, his 4 eyes blinking rapidly as he tried to process what he was seeing. The ship approaching their border fortress was unlike anything in the Imperial database. Sleek, dark, and radiating an energy signature that made his sensors scream warnings. It was roughly the size of a dreadnought, but its design was completely alien to their understanding of spaceship engineering. The hull seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, and strange geometrical patterns covered its surface. When his communications officer reported that the vessel was broadcasting human identification codes, Zex Thor's mandibles clicked in what could only be described as nervous laughter. Humans? Those primitive creatures who had barely learned to leave their home system? It had to be some kind of mistake. The Empire had been watching Earth for decades, amused by humanity's slow progress into space. Humans were considered a Class 7 civilization, barely worth acknowledging, let alone fearing. They had small ships, weak weapons, and technology that was centuries behind the Empire's most basic systems. The Empire's intelligence reports described humans as a species that couldn't even agree among themselves, constantly fighting wars on their homeworld while struggling to establish a few colonies. Yet here was this massive vessel, approaching the Empire's most heavily defended border station with what appeared to be impossible technology. As alarms began blaring throughout the fortress and emergency protocols activated, Admiral Zex Thor realized that everything they thought they knew about humans was about to change forever. "Sir, the vessel is not responding to our standard identification requests," reported Commander Vex AI, her tentacles dancing nervously over her control panel. "It's broadcasting on frequencies we've never seen before, and the transmission is strange." Admiral Zex Thor's massive form shifted in his command chair, causing the reinforced metal to groan. As a Korthak, he stood nearly 10 feet tall with thick, armored skin that could deflect most small weapons. His species had been the backbone of the Empire's military for over 3,000 years. Nothing should have made him nervous. Yet something about this approaching vessel filled him with unease. "Strange how?" he demanded, his voice rumbling like distant thunder. "You're lying," Zex Thor growled. "Humans don't possess such technology." "That's where you're wrong, Admiral. May I come aboard? I think we have much to discuss." Expansion plans were classified at the highest levels. Even most of the Empire's own citizens didn't know about future colonization targets. How could humans have accessed such information? "Assuming that's true," Zex Thor said carefully, "how does that explain your apparent technological advancement? You can't develop centuries of technology in just 50 years. Chen smiled again. "Admiral, what do you know about human warfare?" The question seemed to come from nowhere. "Your species is primitive but violent. You fight constantly among yourselves." "We do fight a lot," Chen agreed. "Do you know why?" When no one answered, he continued. "Competition, natural selection. Every human nation, every human organization, every human individual is constantly competing for resources, for survival, for dominance. It's made us very, very good at finding new ways." 20 minutes later, Admiral Zex Thor found himself in the strangest situation of his military career. He was sitting across from a human, a creature he could have crushed with one hand, who had just transported aboard his station using technology that shouldn't exist. The human hadn't used any kind of shuttle or transport pod. Instead, he had simply appeared in a column of blue light, materializing in the station's docking bay as if he had been assembled from pure energy. The station sensors had detected nothing during the transport, no energy signatures, no dimensional disturbances, nothing that would indicate how such a thing was possible. Captain Chun sat calmly in a chair that was far too large for his human frame, looking completely relaxed despite being surrounded by some of the Empire's most dangerous military officers. He wore what appeared to be a simple black uniform with no visible weapons or technology, yet the station's security scanners couldn't penetrate whatever material it was made from. "You seem confused, Admiral," Chen said, his tone almost friendly. I suppose our technological development has exceeded your expectations. This is impossible, Zexthor stated flatly. Our intelligence reports show that humans have barely mastered fusion power. You lack any significant space-based industry. Your largest ships are barely the size of our shuttlecraft. Chin nodded. Your intelligence reports are accurate as far as they go. What they don't account for is human ingenuity when faced with an existential threat. What threat? Commander Vexai asked, her tentacles writhing with curiosity. You, Chun replied simply. The Empire. The Admiral's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. The Empire has never threatened Earth. We barely consider your species worth cataloging. Exactly, Chun said. And that's the problem. We've been monitoring Imperial communications for over 50 years. We know about your expansion policies. We know about the dozens of species you've conquered or exterminated. We know that Earth is on your list of potential colony worlds. This was becoming more disturbing by the moment. Imperialo kill each other. The human leaned forward slightly. When we realized that the Empire would eventually come for Earth, we didn't try to hide or run. We did what humans do best. We prepared for war. Every nation on Earth, every corporation, every research institution was given a single mission: develop weapons and technology that could defeat the Galactic Empire. Impossible, Zexthor repeated. You can't match the technological development of thousands of species over millions of years. You're right, Chin agreed. We can't match it. We exceeded it. Over the next hour, Captain Chun explained the impossible truth. 50 years ago, when Earth's deep space monitors had first detected Imperial survey probes in nearby systems, humanity had faced a choice: submit to inevitable conquest or fight back. They had chosen to fight, but they had approached the problem in a uniquely human way. We didn't try to match your technology, Chin explained. We studied your species, all of them. We learned your strengths and your weaknesses. We identified the fundamental assumptions that all galactic civilizations seem to share about how technology should work. And then we threw those assumptions out the window. The human pulled out a small device that looked like nothing more than a metallic cube. This is a quantum entanglement communicator. It allows instantaneous communication across any distance by linking particles at the quantum level. Your scientists probably know the theory but consider it impractical because the energy requirements are enormous. He pressed one side of the cube and it began to glow. We solved the energy problem by linking it to parallel versions of itself in alternate dimensions. Every time we use it, we're borrowing power from alternate Earths. It's completely sustainable and virtually unlimited. Admiral Zexthor stared at the device. Interdimensional energy tapping was pure fantasy, something that existed only in theoretical physics papers. No one had ever actually attempted it because the risks were considered too great. You're accessing parallel dimensions for power? Commander Vexai asked, her voice filled with horror. Do you have any idea how dangerous that is? You could destabilize local spacetime. You could create dimensional rifts that could destroy entire star systems, Chin finished. Yes, we know. We've actually done it a few times during testing. It's unfortunate, but necessary for the survival of our species. The casual way he mentioned destroying star systems sent chills through everyone on the bridge. These humans weren't just technologically advanced. They were completely ruthless. The thing about humans, Chun continued, is that we're very good at calculated risks. When faced with certain extinction, we're willing to gamble with technologies that other species consider too dangerous to even research. He gestured toward the view screen, where the human fleet continued to grow. Every ship you see out there represents a different approach to impossible technology. We have vessels that can exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, ships that can manipulate time flow, weapons that can rewrite the laws of physics in localized areas. We also have something that no other species in the galaxy possesses. What? Zexthor asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know. Desperation combined with creativity. Admiral, your empire conquers species after they develop spaceflight. You face them when they're still learning, still vulnerable. You've never fought a species that had time to prepare, that knew you were coming, and that was willing to do absolutely anything to survive. You don't believe us? Chen observed, noting the skeptical expressions on the alien faces around him. I understand. Your species has been dominant for so long that the idea of being outmatched seems impossible. He touched his communicator. Prometheus, please demonstrate Configuration 7 on the target asteroid. Through the station's viewports, they could see a large asteroid about 10 kilometers away, one of many that drifted through this system. One of the human ships, a crystalline vessel that seemed to bend light around itself, moved toward the asteroid with fluid grace. What's it doing? Commander Vexai asked. Watch, Chen replied. The crystalline ship approached the asteroid and seemed to simply touch it. There was no weapon discharge, no energy beam, no explosion. The asteroid just stopped existing. One moment it was there, a solid mass of rock and metal kilometers across. The next moment, there was nothing but empty space. Where did it go? Zexthor demanded. Nowhere, Chen said calmly. The reality shifter convinced local space-time that the asteroid had never existed. It's not destroyed, it simply never was. The ship can do the same thing to planets, fleets, even entire star systems if necessary. The bridge fell silent. The Admiral had witnessed thousands of weapons demonstrations during his career, but he had never seen anything like this. It wasn't just a matter of superior firepower. This was technology that operated outside the normal laws of physics. Of course, Chen continued. That's one of our less dramatic capabilities. Would you like to see something more impressive? Before anyone could answer, another human ship, this one appearing to be made of pure shadow, approached the station. It didn't dock or request permission to board. Instead, it simply passed through the station's hull as if the metal and energy barriers didn't exist. Alarms blared as the station's sensors detected the impossible. A physical object moving through solid matter without causing any damage or disturbance. The ship moved through multiple levels of the station, its passage visible through the viewports, before emerging on the other side completely unchanged. Phase technology, Chen explained. That ship exists in a state of quantum uncertainty. It's simultaneously solid and incorporeal until it chooses to interact with matter. Very useful for bypassing shields and armor. Admiral Zexthor realized that his hands were shaking. In the span of an hour, he had seen technologies that shouldn't exist, weapons that operated beyond known physics, and capabilities that rendered the Empire's entire military doctrine obsolete. What do you want from us? He asked again, his voice barely above a whisper. We want to prevent unnecessary bloodshed, Chen replied. Admiral, humanity doesn't want to conquer the galaxy. We don't want to destroy the Empire. We just want to be left alone to develop in peace. He stood up from his chair, his small human frame somehow commanding the attention of every alien in the room. But we will not be conquered. We will not submit. And we will not allow Earth to become another Imperial colony world. The Empire has never officially threatened Earth, Commander Vexai pointed out. No, but Earth is on your expansion list. We've seen the surveys, the resource assessments, the population projections. In your planning documents, Earth is designated as Colony World 7439, scheduled for acquisition in approximately 30 years. The fact that humans had somehow accessed classified Imperial planning documents was almost as disturbing as their impossible technology. How had they penetrated Imperial security systems that had never been breached? Here's what we propose, Chen continued. The Empire officially recognizes Earth and its colonial territories as a sovereign nation. In exchange, we share some of our less dangerous technologies with Imperial scientists. Not weapons, but things like medical advances, communication improvements, energy generation systems. And if the Empire refuses? Zexthor asked. Chen's expression didn't change, but somehow the temperature in the room seemed to drop. Then we demonstrate why picking a fight with a desperate, creative species is a very bad idea. The human touched his communicator again. All ships, prepare demonstration package Omega. Through the viewports, the human fleet began to change. Ships that had appeared solid suddenly became translucent. Vessels that had been moving normally began to flicker in and out of existence. Several ships seemed to split into multiple copies of themselves, each one equally real. "Admiral," Chan said quietly, "your fortress is currently surrounded by over 800 human vessels. Each one represents technology that your scientists would consider impossible. Each one is crewed by humans who have spent 50 years preparing for war with the Galactic Empire." He paused, letting that sink in. "But this is just one small task force. Humanity has been building ships and developing weapons for 5 decades. We have fleets hidden in dimensions that your sensors can't detect, ships that exist outside normal time, weapons that can rewrite physical laws. We also have something else," he added. "We have the element of surprise. Your empire believes that humans are primitive and harmless. You have no defenses against technologies you don't believe exist. You have no strategies for fighting enemies who can attack through dimensions you can't access." Admiral Zexthor looked around his bridge at his officers. He saw the same thing in their eyes that he felt in his hearts. The recognition that everything had changed. The galaxy's balance of power had shifted in the span of a single conversation. "If we agree to your terms," he said slowly, "how can we be sure you won't use these weapons against the Empire? Because we don't want to rule the galaxy, Admiral. We want to survive and be left alone. Give us that, and we'll be the Empire's greatest allies. Force us to fight, and we'll be your worst nightmare." Admiral Zexthor found himself in an impossible position. As a border station commander, he had no authority to negotiate treaties with alien species. That was a matter for the Imperial Council and the Emperor himself. But he also couldn't ignore what he had witnessed. The humans possessed technology that could potentially destroy the Empire, and they were offering peace instead of conquest. "I need to contact Imperial Command," he said finally. "Of course," Chen agreed. "But Admiral, I should mention that we've been monitoring Imperial communications for decades. We know about your military protocols, your chain of command, your strategic planning processes. We also know that the Empire's first instinct will be to gather intelligence on human capabilities and develop countermeasures." The human's expression became serious. "Please understand, there are no countermeasures to technologies that operate outside known physics. The Empire's entire military doctrine is based on conventional warfare using conventional technology. You're not prepared to fight enemies who can attack through higher dimensions, manipulate time flow, or convince reality that your ships never existed." "What are you suggesting?" Commander Vexai asked. "I'm suggesting that the Empire approach this situation with wisdom rather than aggression. We're offering peace and limited technology sharing. The alternative is a war that would devastate both our civilizations." Admiral Zexthor activated his command console and opened a priority channel to Imperial Fleet Command. The holographic image of Fleet Admiral Kexthor, the Emperor's military advisor, appeared on the screen. "Admiral Zexthor, report," the Fleet Admiral demanded. "Sir, we have a situation that requires immediate attention from the highest levels of command. I'm transmitting tactical data on a human fleet that has appeared in our space. Sir, their technological capabilities appear to exceed our own by several orders of magnitude." There was a long pause as Fleet Admiral Kexthor reviewed the transmitted data. His expression shifted from skepticism to confusion to alarm as he processed the sensor readings and tactical assessments. "This data must be corrupted," he said finally. "These readings suggest impossible technologies. Sir, I'm looking at the human fleet right now. Captain Chun of the Earth vessel Prometheus is aboard my station. I've witnessed demonstrations of their capabilities. Sir, everything we thought we knew about human technological development is wrong." Captain Chun stepped into view of the communication pickup. "Fleet Admiral Kexthor, I am Captain David Chun representing the unified government of Earth. We seek peaceful relations with the Galactic Empire, but we will defend ourselves if necessary." The Fleet Admiral's 4 eyes focused on the human. You're offering terms to the Empire? You realize that your entire species could be eliminated with a single battle fleet. Could you? Chen asked mildly. Admiral, your military databases contain detailed analyses of every weapon system, every ship design, every tactical doctrine used by the Empire over the past 1,000 years. We've studied all of it. We know exactly how you fight, and we've prepared accordingly. You've studied our classified military databases? The fleet admiral's voice rose with alarm. For 50 years, Chen confirmed. We've also identified the locations of your primary fleet bases, your supply lines, your command and control systems. We know the Empire better than most Imperial citizens do. Within hours, the situation had escalated to the highest levels of Imperial government. Emperor Zalthex himself convened an emergency session of the Imperial Council to address what was being called the human crisis. Captain Chun waited patiently aboard Border Station Kex 9 as the Empire's leadership debated how to respond to humanity's unexpected emergence as a galactic power. The human fleet remained in position around the border station, their impossible ships continuing to demonstrate technologies that defied Imperial understanding. When the Emperor's communication arrived, it carried the full authority of the Galactic Empire. Emperor Zalthex was an ancient being, over 3,000 years old, who had ruled the galaxy for longer than human civilization had existed. His species, the Eternal Ones, were among the oldest and most advanced in the galaxy. Human, the Emperor said, his voice carrying the weight of millennia. You claim to possess technologies that surpass Imperial science. You offer peace while demonstrating weapons. Explain yourself. Chun bowed respectfully. Your Imperial Majesty, humanity finds itself in an unfortunate position. We are a young species that has discovered we live in a dangerous galaxy. Our choice was simple. Develop the capability to defend ourselves or face eventual extinction. We chose survival. The Emperor studied the human through the holographic link. Show me these technologies you claim to possess. Are you certain, Your Majesty? Some of our demonstrations can be disturbing to species who haven't encountered physics-breaking technology before. Show me. Chun nodded to someone off-screen. Through the viewports of Border Station Kex 9, one of the human ships began to change. It was a relatively small vessel, no larger than an Imperial cruiser, but as they watched, it began to grow. Not just in size, it was actually adding mass and structure to itself, pulling material from seemingly empty space. Matter conversion, Chen explained. That ship is converting quantum vacuum fluctuations into solid matter. It can grow to any size necessary, limited only by local space-time stability. The ship continued to expand until it was the size of a moon, its hull now covered with weapons and sensor arrays that had been constructed from nothingness. It can also do the reverse, Chen added. The massive ship began to shrink, compressing itself until it was smaller than a shuttle, then smaller than a fighter, then smaller than a person. Finally, it winked out of existence entirely. Where did it go? Admiral Zexthor asked. It compressed itself down to the quantum level. Still exists, but it's now smaller than an atom. It can remain in that state indefinitely, completely undetectable, and expand back to full size whenever necessary. Very useful for infiltration and surprise attacks. The Emperor's ancient features showed no expression, but there was something in his eyes that suggested he was beginning to understand the true scope of what humanity had achieved. You have violated the fundamental laws of physics, he stated. No, Your Majesty. We've simply found ways around them. The laws of physics are more like guidelines. They can be bent if you understand how reality actually works at the deepest levels. The negotiations continued for 3 days. Representatives from across the Empire arrived to witness the impossible. A primitive species that had somehow leapfrogged thousands of years of technological development to become a potential galactic superpower. The human demonstrations became increasingly spectacular. Ships that could exist in multiple timelines simultaneously, weapons that attacked through parallel dimensions, defensive systems that made their vessels completely immune to conventional attack. Each new revelation sent shockwaves through the Imperial scientific community. How is this possible? Dr. Vex Malik, the Empire's chief scientist, asked during one session. Your species had barely achieved fusion power 50 years ago. Even with accelerated development, you couldn't have mastered technologies that we consider purely theoretical. Chen smiled. Doctor, you're approaching this from the wrong perspective. You assume that technological development must follow a linear path, that you must master basic technologies before advancing to complex ones. Humans don't think that way. When we realized that conventional technology would never be enough to defend against the Empire, we started with the most advanced theoretical physics we could imagine. We worked backward from there. Impossible, Dr. Vex Malik protested. You can't build advanced technology without understanding the fundamentals. Can't you? Chen asked. Doctor, your species has been developing technology for millions of years. You understand the fundamentals better than almost anyone. But you've also become conservative. You won't attempt things that seem too dangerous or too unlikely. Humans are different. When faced with extinction, we'll try anything. We built our first faster-than-light drive by jury-rigging a gravity manipulator to a quantum computer and hoping for the best. We discovered dimensional phase technology by accident while trying to create a better fusion reactor. Half of our breakthroughs came from what other species would consider catastrophic failures. We lost entire research stations, whole star systems, thousands of lives. But we learned from every disaster and kept pushing forward. Dr. Vex Malik looked horrified. You destroyed star systems during research? 7 of them, Chun confirmed. All uninhabited, of course. Each failure taught us something new about the nature of reality. The 7th explosion created a temporary rift in spacetime that allowed us to observe the universe from outside normal dimensional boundaries. That's when we finally understood how to build truly impossible technology. On the 4th day, Emperor Zalthex made his decision. The Galactic Empire would recognize Earth and its colonies as a sovereign nation, with full rights and protections under imperial law. In exchange, humanity would share selected technologies with imperial scientists and would not interfere with imperial expansion in other sectors of the galaxy. The signing ceremony took place aboard the Prometheus, Captain Chen's flagship. Representatives from across the Empire attended, along with delegations from dozens of member species. It was the first time in imperial history that a treaty had been signed with a species that had never been conquered. This is a historic moment, Emperor Zalthex declared as he affixed his seal to the treaty documents. Today, the galaxy welcomes a new partner rather than a new subject. Captain Chun signed the human portion of the treaty with a simple pen, an archaic writing instrument that somehow seemed appropriate for such a momentous occasion. Your Majesty, Chun said. Humanity looks forward to a long and peaceful relationship with the Empire. We hope that our technologies can benefit all galactic civilization. Indeed, the Emperor replied. Though I confess, I'm curious about one thing. You've demonstrated incredible weapons and defensive systems. What prevents you from simply conquering the galaxy yourselves? Chun was quiet for a moment. Your Majesty, with respect, you're asking the wrong question. You should be asking, what prevents us from accidentally destroying the galaxy? The Emperor's ancient eyes widened slightly. Explain. Our most powerful weapons don't just destroy targets. They can destabilize the fundamental forces that hold reality together. We have ships that can create chain reactions in spacetime itself, weapons that can cause stars to spontaneously collapse, devices that can unravel the quantum foam that underlies existence. We're not just powerful, Your Majesty. We're dangerous to everyone, including ourselves. That's why we want peace. The alternative isn't conquest. It's potential universal annihilation. The Emperor stared at the human for a long moment. You're saying that your species poses an existential threat to the entire universe? We're saying that when desperate creatures with active imaginations gain access to physics-breaking technology, the results can be unpredictable. Peace is in everyone's best interest. In the months that followed the treaty signing, the galaxy began to change in ways that no one had anticipated. Human technology, even the limited versions shared with imperial scientists, revolutionized everything from medical treatment to space travel. Border Station Kex-9 became the first imperial facility to be equipped with human-designed shields that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Admiral Zexthor found himself commanding the most advanced defensive installation in the galaxy. "It's remarkable," Commander Vexai observed during one of their routine briefings. "Human medical technology has eliminated most known diseases across 17 Imperial worlds. Their communication systems have reduced interstellar message transmission times by 90%. Their energy generation systems are producing power outputs we never thought possible. And those are just the simple technologies they're willing to share," Admiral Zexthor replied. "I keep wondering what they're keeping secret." He didn't have to wonder long. A few months later, reports began filtering in from across the galaxy about strange phenomena near human space. Sensor readings suggested the presence of massive structures that didn't seem to exist in normal spacetime. Imperial scout ships reported detecting energy signatures so powerful that they threatened to overload their instruments from thousands of light-years away. When questioned about these anomalies, human representatives were politely evasive. "Research projects," they would say. "Nothing for the Empire to worry about." But Admiral Zexthor worried anyway. He had seen what humans could accomplish when they put their minds to it. He had witnessed technologies that operated outside known physics, weapons that could rewrite reality, ships that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. And now they were building something new, something big enough to be detected from interstellar distances, something powerful enough to affect spacetime itself. Late at night, when the border station was quiet and the human fleet had departed for other duties, Admiral Zexthor would stare out at the stars and wonder what humanity was really preparing for. The treaty had brought peace between the Empire and Earth, but it had also introduced a new player to the galactic stage, one whose full capabilities remained unknown. The Empire had spent thousands of years believing it was the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. That belief had been shattered in the span of a few days by a species they had dismissed as primitive. Now, as humanity continued to develop technologies that defied understanding, one question haunted the thoughts of Imperial leaders across the galaxy. If humans could accomplish so much in just 50 years of desperate preparation, what could they achieve with unlimited time and resources? The answer, Admiral Zexthor suspected, would reshape the universe itself. As he watched the stars, a new human ship appeared at the edge of sensor range. It was unlike any vessel he had seen before, larger than a planet, yet somehow existing in a space too small to contain it. The ship flickered in and out of multiple dimensions, its hull covered with structures that seemed to bend light and gravity around themselves. The ship's captain sent a brief message. "Greetings, Admiral. Just passing through. Nothing to worry about." But as Admiral Zexthor watched the impossible vessel disappear into hyperspace, leaving only ripples in the fabric of reality behind, he realized that the galaxy had entered a new age. An age where the impossible had become routine, where physics was merely a suggestion, and where humanity's boundless creativity was reshaping the very nature of existence. The Empire had expected to